So we're going to look at today, how do things that happen to us and impact us, how do those events shape our government policy, the laws that government makes? And the first thing that we're going to look at is public versus private spheres, but mainly we're going to look at public sphere. So the private sphere are things that only impact you, like, does my dog need to go to the vet? Do I have practice today? How much homework am I getting in all my classes? It's just things that impact you. So that's a private sphere. So if you see something that says, that talks about, oh, should grandma move in with us, or should grandma get her own apartment? That's a private sphere issue. Those are things that impact you. Public sphere, though, is a place where society discusses the issues that affect everyone. And I've drawn a little image right here. Public sphere, you have a radio tower that's saying these things are happening, and you have people talking about these events. You could think of the public sphere like you're watching a play or a movie. And the events that are going on, normally in a movie or a play, you'd talk about with the people to your left or right. What are things that you liked? What are things that you didn't like? What's good? What's bad? That's what we do today in the world. Things happen, and we talk about it, and they affect us. So they're not all just on one level, though. The public sphere can be broken up into local, state, national, and global. And issues that may affect you locally is that sidewalk going to be fixed? Is the park nearby going to be built? Are we going to have school today because it's tornadoes? At the state level, an issue could be, are we going to have enough tourism for our economy? Because Florida is very heavily, we rely on tourism, people coming in here and vacationing here. Nationally, should the United States drill offshore for oil? And then globally, how are we going to deal with terrorism? So these are all different levels. Obviously, the outer levels affect more people. The inner levels affect less and less and less. But certain events, opening up a skate park is not going to be an issue that the state deals with or affect people at the state level. All right, but after the public agenda, after we've talked about it, society puts a to-do list, and that's called the public agenda. And they agree that these things are a priority. This year, we're kind of focusing on who should be president nationally. We also, if you're following the elections, what are we going to do about ISIS? What are we going to do about our economy? And this chart over here just shows the flow. You have the public sphere, and then us as society, after we see these events, put them on a to-do list. But who sets the agenda? Who sets that agenda? Who sets up that to-do list? Well, the event itself. If it's a natural disaster, we're going to talk about it. We're going to put it at the top priority. If there's a flood in Mississippi, we are going to talk about it naturally. Or if there's a presidential election, we're going to talk about it because it happens every 4 years. The event itself will be so big that we're just going to talk about it and put it at a priority. The things that affect us. So the next one is people. We're going to talk about and set a priority of things that impact us. Okay, we don't care about a tax increase in Nebraska because that doesn't affect us. But if we're talking about tax increases nationally, well, yeah, that's going to be a priority for us. The news will cover events saying, hey, here's what's going on. And we pay attention to that. And then the public spotlight. Now, what exactly is the public spotlight? The public spotlight are when celebrities use their fame to bring attention to specialized issues they care about. So, what does that mean? Well, in your reading you saw Beyonce fighting hunger. Some bring AIDS. Others talk about drug addiction. When a celebrity dies to drug addiction, that becomes a public spotlight, and it becomes on our priority. The band U2 years ago would have these large concerts to benefit Africa and the hunger that's going on there. If I was a celebrity, though, I would have a Save the Coffee fund. So after the agenda, after we have our to-do list, the public decides on, hey, we are going to figure out how are we going to fix these problems. And so whatever side or view they have on that issue of that event is the public opinion. So, okay, we have a healthcare situation. How are we going to fix it? Well, some would say reform healthcare, some would say tweak it. And you measure that by polls. 9 out of 10 Americans feel like we should lower taxes. Well, how do you get those polls? You take samples. You know, you're not going to measure the entire nation, you're just going to measure 1,000 people or so. And polls are just a measurement on how people feel. With the public opinion, once the nation knows how people generally feel on an issue, they go to the public policy. That's the government's stance on the issue. For example, healthcare. How do the people feel about it? How do they feel it should be solved? Well, if they feel we should restructure the whole thing, the government's going to usually do that. But they sometimes don't. They normally will follow public opinion because we, the people, elect our government officials into office. But sometimes they say, based off principle, they feel that it'd be better if they did it another way. Like, let's say, okay, no, we're not going to reform healthcare because that costs way too much money. And so they take that risk, but that affects how the government shapes its policy. So then here's a chart of the public sphere. You have the public sphere. Setting the agenda, sometimes the event itself, people, the news, and the public spotlight. You have the public agenda, which is the to-do list. Once they have the to-do list, people form an opinion. They take a sample. They poll the people. Once the opinion is formed, the government can either follow the public opinion. If most people want to lower taxes, they're usually going to lower taxes. But sometimes they don't because they feel that it would be best if they didn't follow the public opinion. If they, let's say they'd say raising taxes is actually better, then they'd go that way. But this is how public sphere affects public policy. I'll see you guys next time.